Welcome to Inside the Firm. I'm your host, Alex Gore. I'm here with our co-host, Lance Cayko. How's it going?
Hello. Doing well. Thank you for asking.
Inside the Firm, it's an inside look into an architecture firm, looking at everything from business, how you run a firm, to our own development, being a design-build firm. So we'll just jump right in. First off, what's new?
What's new? Well, there's a lot of stuff new, but speaking of design build, first topic I'd like to talk about is kind of a recap of when we did our first design build project. So, so in 2015, Alex and I took the leap and did our first design build project, which was a tiny house aptly named Atlas. And what I wanted to ask Alex is a few things, and just kind of one of the things we try to do after every project is
AAR, After Actions Review.
Whoa. Did you just make that up, or is that an actual industry term that I don't know about and I am an idiot as a result?
You are not an idiot. Maybe you are. Who am I to judge? Okay. It's from the Army.
Oh,
so every time
cool.
you do an exercise, you do an AAR.
Say it again. What is that?
So AAR, After Actions Review.
Okay, so that's why Alex likes to do that so much.
Yeah.
So you and your dad made a few videos, I think. It wasn't like there's like a 45-minute thing or a recording or something like that about how we could build things differently. Do you remember this?
Not really.
I do. Okay, yeah. It doesn't matter. So the first thing I wanted to ask about was when people build these tiny houses, right? The foundation.
Are you thinking it was Troy and those guys?
Because it was you and your dad. Yep. It was,
oh man.
It was you and
Shout
your
out
dad.
OMR.
I swear. I think you even did it on. I think you did it. You video recorded it.
Up at the cabin or at my house?
At your house.
Look at that. I'll have to find that.
Keith, if you remember, just
please.
remind Alex.
Email your son. You know how to get a hold of me.
Exactly. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the custom trailers. So and when people build these tiny houses, okay, so if you're interested in building a tiny house, it all starts with the trailer because that is essentially your foundation, right?
And one thing we learned from that is I designed with our engineer the trailer for us because basically we didn't want any weird side conditions.
Like where the wheel wells were and stuff like that, right?
It wasn't that the big thing? A lot of them have sort of gates or supports or something on the side to keep whatever's in there. To get a pretty flat trailer that has a beefy side profile, we needed a beefy side profile for a couple different reasons. One is just you need something to secure into if you're doing a traditional house.
And because that's essentially where your exterior walls are going to land on top. So think of it as a foundation.
Yep. And then the second thing we were doing is that we were having the deck fold down and the awning fold up. So that puts a lot of force on that side.
Yep.
Excuse me. And a lot of the trailers aren't built for that. So the first lesson is that, because this is what I do for a job, I can design stuff, talk to our engineer. We did it ourselves. We had one of our oil field buddies make it, who was in welding, and he had welders that made trailers. And we realized the second time that we did it that there's a company that does it. And they specialize in tiny house trailers, and they're located in Colorado. I would love to give them a shout out. What's Trailer Made?
Yeah, they're called Trailer Made. I think they're in Golden, Colorado.
No, they're right down Denver. They're not like in downtown. They're by Colfax. I don't know the address, but you can Google them.
Yeah, so
they make thousands of these a year.
And they know they know. Well, our buddy knew what he was doing too. He did a great job. That's not to take any away, but
our trailer was totally fine for Atlas.
Yep. But the fact that you can find somebody that just does this routinely in-house, I think they ship them and take them all over the United States. Like these guys are a premier trailer company for tiny houses. If you're looking to get it, they're so awesome. So again, it's Trailer Made.
Yeah. So there isn't 1,000 tiny houses being made in Colorado alone. So that just says they're making them everywhere. And since they do this all the time, they do really cool things like your levelers, your jacks. They put them on all four corners.
Which is huge for us building them because every day one of our rules of thumb, we'd come to the job site when we built 3 tiny houses in total. We would level up every single day. It was paramount. Okay, guys, check the level because you just never know if those, like the pneumatic jacks, go down a little bit over time.
Yep. And then instead of having a beefy rectangular steel piece on the side, they have basically an upside down angle.
Yep.
And that allows you to bolt through. So you can bolt your wood to it. So if you're looking, just go with them, honestly. Oh, and because we were doing that craziness, we had them add on to their base model and customize it. I've been down to their shop. They've been doing just crazy, like 40. I don't know if it's 40 foot long. It seemed like that. You know how we had that big frame around it?
Yeah.
Then after they did ours, another guy came and said, I want it. So bigger one.
So what Alex is describing is typically a lot of people who are going to build these tiny houses will just start with a flatbed trailer and then they build with just wood on top. Well, we kind of commercialized the process, and now we have a few copycats, which are great. I love people that think we have good ideas and then use them at their will, right? So what we did from Atlas to even the last two that we built is there's basically 4 columns on each corner, and then there's beams on the top that connect all 4 of those columns. So people have sort of like people are starting to have these frames. So it's kind of like this whole framed thing, and then from there it's just like you're infilling the framing, and it makes I thought it made the job 100% easier because all of a sudden we kind of weren't responsible for plumbing things up, which was great. So it's sort of like this hybrid prefabrication process. And
then also what I like about them too, not that this is plug or advertisement or anything for them, is that their prices they're so honest with their prices, and their custom trailers for tiny houses are at what you could get for a regular trailer that isn't made for a tiny house. And what I like is when I work with people that I can trust, and when people work with us that they trust us, for all that custom work, it was just hourly. And after the first one, they gave me an estimate and they said, hey, it went a little bit longer, but we'll just charge you for the estimate. And then the rest of the work, I was just like, hourly. I trust you guys. Just bill me. And it was great.
Yeah, we should go back and leave them a review because they've done such a great job.
I think I did. I can't remember if I did, but I will.
Yeah,
if I haven't.
But they're awesome. So, anyway, back, even if you're on the East Coast, West Coast, something like that, I'm sure they could get your trailer out to you. That's kind of one of our big lessons learned was you don't have to build the whole thing from ground up. There are companies out there that are starting to specialize in this now, and then they can customize on top of what they already do at a base level. And I think it's the most cost-effective way to do it.
And I think that's what freaks people out the most, is attaching to this trailer and then trying to adapt a trailer. If you're trying to make a tiny house for $20K, you're getting a used trailer, you're using used materials, you're finding stuff at junkyards, at Restore, at everything. And you can do it, and that's fine. That's something that people do. But I think that's maybe the end where you run into, man, how is everything attaching? Is it secure? Am I going to be driving a lot? Blah, blah, blah. Is it going to work? But with anything used, that's what you run into. But it's not only used, it's used, and then you're doing it. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're just adding another level of something that could mess up. So if you were going to buy a new trailer, which I suggest you do, just go with these guys who make them.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, second thing. So we had custom folding components on all 3 of the tiny houses that we built. The first one was honestly kind of, now looking back at it, I feel like it's at a residential level. Like everything was lighter. We could do everything. We could lift everything with 6 guys, but we could still do it with 6 guys. We didn't have to rent a spider crane.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you is if people go look at our tiny house, and I've seen a lot of ones now that people are starting to do folding decks, and it makes total sense. Again, I'm glad that they're copying it.
Yeah. Yep.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
But where would you recommend that somebody starts when they're trying to design and get that foldability to work?
I don't know where you're leading to, but I'll go with the 2 issues that I think are the greatest. One is making sure it fits in. So you could hand draw it, but you need to make sure everything is perfect. Or you need to hire a drafter or someone who knows what they're doing. And the other thing is to get the right hinges.
The hinges were key, right? The first awnings and decks that we installed, they were on door hinges.
Yes. They were in commercial door hinges.
Yep, commercial level door hinges from, I think, literally one of the big box stores.
Yes,
right?
Lowe's, Home Depot,
whatever.
Everything.
Yep.
And it worked just fine because our deck only was, it's funny, it's showing on our big screen here.
Yeah.
Only folding down half the way. It was only half as tall as the whole height.
And it was aluminum, and it was smaller.
Aluminum.
Again, on a residential scale sort of thing, very, very digestible and stuff. So it worked for us. We folded the house probably up and down maybe, what do you think, 2 dozen times so far, somewhere in there.
Yep. And me and you can do it. I could actually do it by myself, but I don't want to throw out my back.
Yeah. You don't want hernia number 2. Alex is breakable.
I am very breakable. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood to me too. I don't want to break.
So if you look at if you go to Atlas Tiny House and kind of look at the pictures, and if you do less than what we're doing, I think you can get those commercial spring hinges, and those spring hinges help lift it up a little bit. But I don't know if they do that much really.
Here's what I would say. So I did Alex and I did the installation on all of the first tiny house together. Almost everything was done together. On the second round, Alex was more of project manager and designer and kind of coordinating all of that stuff, and then also like managing the finances, the money, and dealing with that headache. And then I was more of the foreman on the job site. So my experience of installing those giant hinges was awesome. It was, and here's why I think it's so.
But so people know, when we went into the next two ones on this commercial level, I had someone fabricate, and I drew up custom spring hinges.
Yeah, and they were huge. I think they were like 36 inches long, maybe somewhere in there. 36
was there
to
3
42
per side?
There were, I think, yes, there were 3 per side. Yep. So when we installed those, just knowing that, seeing the way we bolted them in, and that they were longer pieces, it left less margin of error for installing, let's say on the first tiny house where we had maybe 6 or 7 hinges, maybe even more. We were worried about racking, like racking it back and forth, and that you would have misalignment. So I think that for me, maybe they, you made the point that maybe they don't help you with the lifting, but I think they at least they're like another safety level of, we're not going to rack this. It's going to fold up and down really cleanly and nicely.
And how that came about is that I went and looked at all the RVs, because some of the toy haulers have a spring-assisted hinge on it, and they really do help out. So I contacted the manufacturers, and they're like, we're not going to sell you one. So I found people that would custom make it out of Illinois in Chicago. So I'll put them in the show notes too.
Yeah, they do really good stuff. That was honestly some of the coolest stuff I've ever installed. It was just awesome to just like the magnitude of those springs.
They were industrial.
Yeah, they're cool.
But if you remember correctly, one, we used steel instead of aluminum. And then,
for the second round. Yep.
And then we did plywood, and then we did a really thick 5/8 inch rubber on top of it, which was really heavy. But before we put the rubber on, it really went up with it. It was easy. It was not too hard. And then that rubber and then the glue, everything, then it became difficult. So now it's like a 4-man job.
Yeah. And so if you
and they're 8 feet tall.
Right. And so if you, let's say we built Atlas 2.0 and it was actually a replica here. I think those for our deck, excuse me, I gotta sneeze.
I would love to. So while you're sneezing,
because then I think it would fold up and down, no problem, right?
It'd be so easy, Lance. It'd be so easy.
I could have my kids do it. I could have little baby Kaya do it.
Little baby Kaya, tiny 8-year-old baby Kaya. I don't know. Is that how old she is?
Yeah, that's old she is.
Oh, good for me. Yeah. Good. Uncle Al knows. I would love to do an Atlas 2.0, because it would be a cross of everything we learned from both of them now. Because I would do that wood siding, and then I do the industrial hinges on the regular one.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, hopefully in the new commercial space, we'll get some orders. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So what about, so to sum it up, for custom folding components like that, you think you gotta at least, maybe if you're just a do-it-yourselfer, learn some software so you can kind of test everything digitally, right? Yep. If you don't want to go to that expense, hire a draftsman at the very least to try to test things.
Yep.
And then what else?
The other thing too, for these awnings that fold up, get gas struts. So you can Google gas struts. I'm going to put all these in the links. I'm just ready.
The gas struts were key, especially on on the first tiny house. They don't really work. We didn't install them correctly because
we didn't know how to install them.
Yeah, exactly.
And we overlapped them wrong.
We didn't. Yeah. So, and what the gas struts he's talking about, like if anybody has a Suburban or anything of a hatchback, open your hatchback up. That's what we're talking about. Those little struts in the back, and you'll see how they're installed.
And basically, once you look at it, you'll see maybe how to design and work your design so that it works. But these puppies, basically we put them on wrong to begin with, and they didn't do anything. And then I said, nope, we gotta put it more at like closer to a 45-degree angle. And we could have gone a little bit more. And holy cow, it made a world of difference.
I thought it was the opposite way. Didn't we go the opposite way to where it was?
Nope.
It was like more of an 85-degree angle.
No,
80?
we put it at, let's just say, an 85.
Yeah.
And then we went to maybe like a 75.
Okay.
60. Yep.
Yep.
And we could have got a higher pressure one too.
Right.
So, but one, we did the calculations. Two, the manufacturer recommended this. So we just did what they said. But can you imagine getting ones a little bit more? Because this thing lifts up the first, lifting up to about your head.
Mm-hmm.
One person can do.
Mm-hmm.
Lifting up these huge 8-foot steel structures.
Giant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then getting, like pressing above your head takes a couple people, and it's just that last couple inches.
Yeah. It's just like anything. That last 5% is the hardest part, right?
But those are so cool, especially when one guy can just take it and just go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I bet you I could lift it up like
Yeah.
this. by
So for
myself,
awnings,
above my head.
for awnings, you need, and for those awnings, we still use door hinges, which was fine, and the lifting help comes from the gas struts.
Yep.
Okay, and then for decks, just to reiterate, spring-loaded hinges.
Yep.
I think are critical. 100%. Okay, cool. How about finishes? So you did allude to it, and I wanted to talk about your stainless steel bathroom.
Oh.
So if you go to atlastinyhouse.com, if you go look at our tiny houses, in the first one, they're beautiful on the inside because we use Douglas fir, and then there's cherry countertops. So it is, and then there's oak or some oak in the cabinetry and stuff, but it all blends kind of nicely. It's just really beautiful, like pinkish, yellowish wood. And then Alex had the brilliant idea of putting
Stainless steel in the whole bathroom.
because we went to Taliesin West, and
Goes deeper.
was it? Oh, it goes deeper than this. Okay.
So
Fill us in. Where? Tell us about your infatuation.
So
Your love affair.
Taliesin West, Frank Lloyd Wright on some of the walls used kind of a ribbed stainless steel, and it looked pretty cool, and it was a lot thinner. The idea that goes really deeper is I can't believe you didn't remember this. Tim the Toolman Taylor.
I did not remember this.
Tim the Toolman Taylor, man, when he did a bathroom, it was all. Do you remember that episode?
No, you
Yeah.
fill us in.
Oh man, he did this bathroom where it was all steel. I think it was at the diamond steel.
Oh, the diamond plated steel.
Yep,
Okay,
the
yeah.
diamond plated steel. He had TVs in there, and then when you turned on your lights, he had like 3 level of lights when you're looking in the mirror, and he's like, okay, this is just regular. Second is high. He's like, if you want to get your nose hair, you turn on this, and he had car lights, like the brights.
He's so crazy. Wasn't his buddy? Wasn't he on the?
Al Borland.
Yeah, his buddy actually knew what he was doing, and Tim was just insane, right?
And you know what? I think not only did he pretend acted like he knew what he was doing, I think he actually knew what he was doing.
Right.
Al Borland
In
was
real life.
was like a real guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think so too.
So Alex, Tim Allened it
Yes.
with our tiny house bathroom.
I think that's my goal, is not to be like Al, but to be like Tim, and you can be my Al.
There you go. I like it. Yeah, 100%. That's why this works.
But that idea was only 4 times worse than using your light gauge steel for the stairs.
Oh, there you go. There
Yeah.
you go. There's a jab back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But still, I wanted to jab back and say, like, it's just as... No. The stainless steel is 4 times worse.
Here's the thing, though. So it was a giant pain in the butt to get the stainless steel installed, and we only did part of it, and then we had to take it back out because there was a leak. We actually hired like this carpenter to get the rest of it done. In the end, the entire bathroom minus the toilet, which at some point, I don't know, if we get crazy, maybe we want to get our idea was to put a stainless steel toilet in there like there's like a prison. So it is like this uber industrial thing. It's kind of scary because then there's this like 3 16-inch thick sliding stainless steel door.
Yep.
That's a barn door, like a reverse barn door. And the bathroom's a shower and a toilet and everything all in one. It's cool, but it's just really industrial, like insanely industrial.
I don't mind it. I would want to make kind of like a wood pallet to step on.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's a good idea.
Yep. And then maybe a bigger window. it was just hard to do, and it's hard to fix anything that goes wrong.
Everything's so tiny in those spaces. To
Yeah.
try to get these big panels like moved around is pretty crazy.
Yeah, but I like it now that I don't have to do any work on it.
Yeah. What would you? Okay, so if we built Atlas 2.0,
Yep.
interior finish, what would you change on the interior as far as finishes go? Just the bathroom?
And then I would get a professional real cabinet maker to make just slick drawers that come out underneath.
Yeah, we already have that guy. He'd be great.
Yes,
yeah,
he would be great.
From the second round of tiny houses. That
And
we
then
built.
maybe the floor, I'd use I'd use a real hardwood, and it'd be different than the walls.
Yeah. We use Douglas for the floors, and it's nicky, like it's denty. It's it's not really a hardwood. It's a softwood.
I'd put that hammock in there.
Yeah. But what about the bathroom? That's what I'm really getting to here. What the heck would what would we honestly do for the bathroom?
So a lot of tiny house people do wood and they
I don't
seal
understand it. Really?
Yeah. What would you do? I don't want to do concrete.
Wood would be cool. Wood would be cool. And I don't know about the floor. I have what are you gonna do about the floor? Could you still do a stainless steel pan or something like that?
You know what? I wonder if you could get a custom pan and maybe just drill a hole for the toilet. Get a shower pan, because I know these shower people. They start at like 2'6" wide to 4 foot, and
I
they
bet
do
you
every increment up to 6 foot and up to 4 foot.
Yeah.
They'll do every inch.
That's a good idea. Then for the walls, I wouldn't mind it, but I think you need to do something like a wood that's seriously rot resistant, like a cedar or a redwood or an ironwood redwood type of thing. That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about the exterior?
Exterior, I do reclaimed barn wood.
You do barnwood.
Yep.
That would be cool.
And I thought maybe not after. So
What about the roof?
The two big tiny houses that we did, they went on tour. They went all across America, Colorado to Montana to the East Coast, back to Montana, back to Colorado.
And winter is over.
Yep.
And we haven't really got any warranty calls.
Yeah.
So we're pretty proud of ourselves for that.
And one of our guys knows the electrician down there, and he goes, they came back looking just like when they left.
It's awesome.
So, steel roof, because I still want to collect rainwater.
Yeah.
But reclaimed siding on the side, and then just I hope someone, I'm really excited. I didn't think I'd be excited to build a tiny house again, but now I am.
Okay,
dude,
good.
And then putting the hammock
The
in
hammock
there?
is the hammock is key.
That has to happen.
Yeah. I agree.
And now that we have a cabinet maker,
Right. I just feel like we're better prepared. Third time's a charm, right? That would be our third tiny house build, and I really think like the third time you do things, it's better, right? So that's maybe why you should get married 3 times.
Yep.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm just kidding. That was a joke. I love my wife. So so that was good. I think one thing. What you have anything else?
No, I just think we're so prepared, especially with the subs, with the electrician, and then getting better costs on solar panels. I think we can do that too.
Yeah. So I know some people listening, shout out Devin Tilley, doesn't understand the tiny house movement. And I get that. I get why some people just do not understand it at all. We understand it because we've been in it. We've met with a bunch of different people. I think it's a cool like niche thing to do. So my goal, I really hope that it doesn't die out by the time we're done with our development. We have the space. That's what we're planning part of the space for, right?
Yep.
That we have the ability to just manufacture them. That'd be awesome. One every quarter would be a kind of a stretch, but
3 a year.
3 a year would be good. Yeah,
there you go.
That feels about right.
Yep.
Feels about right. Awesome. All right, that's tiny house talk.
Yep.
You wanted to talk about teaching a studio for the first time and sort of the value of that.
Yeah. So as you might know, we teach at CU Boulder, and we teach engineers and we teach environmental design students. And a lot of environmental design students become architecture students. It's kind of like the undergrad. It's kind of it's equivalent, sort of, if you take biology and then you become a doctor. But this is what basically all architecture students do. There's not really too many bachelors of architecture degrees. It's all environmental design. I would say 90%.
Yes.
Yep. So it is honestly, I'm so happy when it's done, because now I don't have to go to Tuesdays and Thursdays and my whole morning I can work. But I look forward to it every year, and these kids continually impress me, inspire me. It keeps me current because we're getting out of Revit. The more work we have, the more I can't even touch this. I just have to manage and direct and do all that stuff. So, but these kids will ask everything from the dumbest question you've ever heard in your life to, that's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that. I might not even know the answer. Let's find it on Google.
Yep. There's always new projects. I think we're continually learning. One of the things we say, so we taught an E&VD studio in the fall of 2014, and we only did it once. From there, we actually ended up being able to train like some future employees. One of which works for us right now. He's phenomenal. It's a great way, I think, to keep your feet wet in both practice and theory, and then at the same time, maybe you can start trying to find and farm new talent because that's a precious commodity, absolutely 100% in this industry.
I actually want to encourage and discourage something.
Okay.
So a lot of principals that go and teach at a university, they are probably older than us, and that doesn't matter. It takes a while to get a principal, and they've lost those practical skills. I think university has enough theory, leadership, all that. It's like we're teaching students the qualities you'll need in 10 years, but not that they'll need right away. So if you're a principal thinking about doing this, I would almost discourage you unless you know a practical skill, meaning what program are you using? Can you teach your theory, your leadership in that, but also have them apply it so it's not in SketchUp and hand drawing, which when they come to your firm, whoever they're working under or working with is going to be upset that they don't know how to practically implement all these.
Yeah, I think the responsibility of instructors, there's a lot of responsibility that comes into play that I hope more people become aware of. Right at the end of the day, we are trying to create good practicing architects.
Yep.
So theory is important, but the practicality. If there's just anything you can bring to the table that helps them be a good practicing architect, they could be highbrow and crazy doing awesome stuff. But at the end of the day, we've got to get things built. We've got to get things designed.
I don't know an equivalent analogy, but it seems sad that technical schools focus so much on this practical aspect, and then universities focus on this leadership aspect. And when none of them do both well, that's an oversimplification. I'm sure there's schools that do.
Shout out North Dakota State.
Yep, and there's students who will just teach themselves. But why that division happens is crazy, and why they don't focus more on doing both. You just got to find the right people and get it done.
Yeah. But for everybody listening, if they've ever been interested, I would highly encourage it. Just see if you can get in there and teach for one semester, or even maybe contact some of the instructors and see if you can come in and give like an impromptu lecture. That's a good way to sort of get in and get out of the whole thing.
The other thing, if you're getting stonewalled, email. You can find the emails of basically every professor if you go to your local university and just say, hey, I'm this guy. I just want to let you know that I'm available for crits if you need any.
Yes.
We always need someone to come crit.
It's
Wouldn't
hard.
that be great?
That's really difficult for us to always find. We try to set it up so that the final critique for our design projects, we have about 60 students every semester. Yeah. We get a practicing architect, a practicing realtor, a practicing developer. It's so critical.
Why every principal isn't doing that? I can't fault them because we aren't doing that. We do teach. You get to pre-interview all your students. You get to see them. Your future employees. You can do third year. You can follow them up to fourth year, fifth year. You can see which ones drop off, which ones continually gain, or which ones take some advice and then just sprint. And man, that's going to be worth so much to find those right people.
And honestly, 99% of the students are so eager to finally meet somebody who's practicing in the field.
Yep.
Because they know that's their doorway. That's their doorway to get in. Like these students really want to make a difference in the world. Yep. I mean, they absolutely do, especially designers. They're just optimistic people.
Yeah. Every business book that you probably open will state somewhere in there how key the people are. So this seems fundamental. And I know principals are super busy, or if you own your own firm, but you can carve out a morning. A morning is totally worth it once every semester to go and critique a final presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go out there and get them. Okay, cool. So I think from here, a little best and worst advice.
Absolutely.
And the best and worst advice this week, it comes from my wonderful fiance and a practicing realtor in Longmont, Colorado. So we'll take a short break, and Alex will come back with his reaction because I did the interview this time. All right, everybody. I have Marilyn Ackerman here. She is a local realtor in the Longmont, Boulder County area. And Marilyn is going to be our guest for this week's segment of Best and Worst Advice. But I want to preface this. When I first approached Marilyn, by the way, who is my fiance, to do this segment for us, she said, my brain doesn't work like your guys' does in that I don't think about best and worst advice like you. So can you kind of start by talking about that?
Sure. So that question you asked me yesterday, and it sort of pained me because I couldn't even think of any advice. And then I thought, well, of course I receive advice in different ways, like everybody does. And I probably give it too. I give it all day professionally, of course. So why it sort of pained me was because of my background in meditation, going to a Unity church for about 10 years and being a meditation teacher before that and just in different spiritual groups, where advice was a concept that was just not really part of how I thought about things. Because in meditation, you don't, when you meditate, you don't ask other people.
Okay.
You ask yourself.
I see. So it's more of you're looking from within and then going outward rather than externally and going inward.
Yeah. So that's why it just pained me.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it pained me so much because when you have a problem when I have a problem I want to solve in my life, and this is what I learned from the Unity Church and from teaching meditation, was that I be still in myself, meditate, clear my head, and the answers come.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for clarifying that. Because I was kind of shocked. I was like, "What? You've never had good and bad advice?" So that's super helpful. Just as sort of a lead in. So you're going to kind of give us some general life advice.
Well, so since I'm sort of not programmed to think about advice so much, I just wanted to talk about examples from my life, where. I suppose, people that give you advice are often in your family, but I don't think that my family was ever like that. Because, my family, my mom went to a Unitarian church.
Uh-huh.
We just were never really advice people. We were just like know yourself kind of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I don't think I ever received advice from her, but I just wanted to talk about the example that she gave me, which was just something that I followed. Which was so it was just her and I after I was about 6 years old, and my dad lived in another state, and I watched her, go from stay-at-home mom, gain with me when they were married, gain a master's degree then, and that was a time when we were drinking powdered milk. I was wearing my cousin's hand-me-downs, and she was bigger than me. They didn't fit so well. It was a couple years, and then go to gain her MBA. At a local college, and then having a full-time job, like EDS was one of her employers.
What is EDS?
IBM. It's a branch of IBM. Right. And then and going to work in her heels and her suit, and then going to her other job, which was she acquired by the time I was 13 about 30 rental houses. Mm-hmm. So I watched her do all this, and that was sort of not advice, but leading by example, where I could understand how you could build up from a place where there wasn't much.
Yeah.
And build up from that. And, because I think if people ask me, about my child, and I say, well, I lived with just my mom, they tend to have these thoughts that maybe that wasn't, like, maybe you didn't have much.
Right.
Well, we didn't for a couple of years, but boy, we were doing great. By the time I was in my teens and early teens and so forth, we were doing fantastic. We were going on these package trips to Mexico. I was in ski clubs. We had everything I could ever possibly want. And I was thinking about that and how I saw that example, and what I learned from that was some things about you don't have to be typical or a stereotype, or you don't, no, everyone is unique. You don't have to.
Yeah. And everybody, I love that, because I think one of the things I think society right now could be reminded of that would be good for all of us is that everybody is dealt their own set of cards, right?
Yeah.
And it's up to you how you play them. And they might be a terrible run of cards, but at least you're dealt a hand of cards. And it was up to Kay, your mother, and how she played them, and she played them correctly. Yeah,
she did. And it's funny because so when I was living in my other house before we moved in here, so a friend of my son's came over who was 8 years old, and his dad was walking him up the sidewalk to our house, and I was in my garage, and they didn't know I was in my garage. And the friend, he goes, "Why is their house so small?" And the and the dad goes, "Well, when a lady's on her own, This
is the house before we moved in together."
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, and the dad was nice. He was like, "Well, when a lady's on her own or anyone's on their own, they just don't always have as much."
Right.
And
why is it so small?
Which is hilarious because that kid's house was like one room bigger than mine.
That's what I was going to say. Same neighborhood. What?
Yeah, I know.
We're talking like 80s style tract homes in Longmont.
I know. So I know it was the same neighborhood anyway. So I was in the garage, and they didn't know that I heard them. And so I come out and I was like, "Hey, you know what? Actually, if you put all the houses I own together, it would be like a big castle."
Wow, I bet that freaked them out.
It did.
Yeah, so talk about a little bit about so how have you observed your mother, throughout the years? She was an awesome entrepreneur. I had like the opportunity for the first time last year during Thanksgiving, I think, when they came out, to finally sit down with her and ask her about, "Kay, how did you rack up all of these houses and become sort of a, for lack of better words, like very successful slumlord?"
I know.
And real estate entrepreneur. So how did you take, her leading by example, and how have you implemented that in your life?
Right. Well, one thing that she did really well was take leaps. I mean, real estate is always a leap when it's those deals where you buy something and somehow the seller didn't know it was worth so much and you got a deal. That almost never happens.
It's not real.
People are very savvy when they sell their houses.
Yeah, especially here in Colorado. I think we said this several times between ourselves, is that real estate professionals in Colorado are very, very savvy, and even doing fix and flips, it's super competitive to get in.
and the homeowners, they are savvy about what their home is worth.
Especially with Zillow and everything else, where they can kind of do their own research at this point. I think that's helping them.
Yeah. I mean, people might skim, a few thousand, off the price somehow with someone who's slightly less savvy, but you really can't, I don't think that exists so much. So she was good at taking leaps of faith, but leaps of just knowing that real estate, if you look at a graph, it's gone up since, the 1800s or whatever it is. And so she was just good at buying things that were going to be profitable in the future, and just knowing that and having that knowingness and not having to just think about exactly today. And also she was really good at looking at what was going on with the government.
Yeah.
So the government at the time was giving out Section 8 vouchers.
For housing.
Housing, not Section 8, welfare vouchers. And
just a stipend for rent.
Yeah,
right?
So she was good at seeing how those rents would be secured, because if you think about owning a house in a really bad neighborhood, you think that's very insecure. But it's the opposite.
Yeah.
In that
she found her
decade,
niche. She found her niche.
In that decade, it was the most secure and maybe secure rental you could have. The government was paying the rent.
And when I asked your mother about that, then she said there was a certain point where the government stopped writing the checks directly to the landlord of this, and then everything fell apart.
So
what a brilliant insight by her.
Right. Yeah. It was great. So definitely what I learned was that it's okay to take leaps even when the thing that you're buying or investing in seems at the moment to just be regular, not great.
Yep.
To take leaps with the few properties that I've been able to get. And so I think that was really good that she did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's the leaps that were important. And I think that's just being inside yourself, knowing what's true.
Yeah.
You know, if you want to read the news about housing every day, it's going to make you crazy.
It's going to make you crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's something to a gut level decision that also has a lot of brain power behind it, I think, especially when you're, deep into an industry like we are, like real estate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you just know, take for instance the house I bought, the very first house that you sold me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even have to look at any other houses. I just knew that was exactly what I needed. I knew it was perfect for me to fix and flip, and then we ended up turning a pretty good profit on the thing in the end. So I'm totally with you about that kind of inward and just making it happen rather than looking for advice from 50 different places. I think it can make people crazy. Yeah.
It can. Mm-hmm. It can. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and you were a great client, by the way. One house, and he bought it. He knew what he wanted. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it was pretty easy. Cool. Well, thanks for your time today on the podcast, and hopefully we'll have you back on again.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
That was great, Marilyn. Thanks for that. Lance, thanks for doing the interview. My reaction, I have a couple reactions to I think 3 points. One where she mentioned the buildup. I think this is so key. Society treats entrepreneurs and the successful almost like instant successes, and what a lot of those entrepreneurs will say is, oh, it took me forever. Even Bill Gates and Zuckerberg, they'll say, well, I was working on this since I was 15 or 16.
And you don't even know how many businesses that they did that failed before they got successful.
Yeah. But I would almost take out the Zuckerbergs out of the category, because you could say, I've been drawing and working at architecture since I was 12, and I'm not even nearly close, or none of us are as successful as big Björk Ingels group, or something like that. But so I think you need to put those aside and then see that your business, what you're doing, is a huge buildup. And they say basically when you're making your most money is in your 50s. So there's a ways to go for a lot of people.
It's a long game. Yep. I cannot stress that it is an 18-hole game with one extra hole at the end for sure. That's the way it works.
And one of the best business books of all time was Jim Collins' Good to Great, and he talked about pushing the flywheel. So basically, think about when you're gaining power through water, and let's say you're just pushing it yourself. The first couple pushes are going to be hard, and that might be the first 3 years. And then, 5 years a little bit easier, and then and then all of a sudden you get that thing spinning, and then you can just use your hand and kind of just keep it going.
Yep.
And I think that's what happened to us. Not only did it take 3 to 5 years to kind of bust out, it also took the economy to recover.
Right.
To bust out.
Right.
So
I like to think that we were like this. We were just incubating. We've been incubating an egg, and then it finally started to hatch, right? And then it multiplied, and then it started multiplying.
Yep. And that kind of segues into what she said about everyone's dealt your own deck.
Yeah.
And success, however you define it, because it doesn't just have to be business or monetary. It can be being a good person, doing a good job, being a great friend, family member.
Yep. Father, son, daughter.
Yep. So the deck of cards that you're dealt with, I wouldn't... Where you are right now, I'd almost just pause, stop, and just say, this is where I am. This is what's happening. Don't take responsibility like, oh, I'm not one of these, people that we even look up to.
Yeah.
Because
comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
Teddy Roosevelt.
Because whatever you're going for is sort of like a combination. Right? A sophisticated combination where there's maybe only a couple combinations that work. And you have a deck of cards, I have a deck of cards, everyone else does. And that big prize is maybe 1 out of 100,000, 1 out of 50,000, 1 out of 1,000 or something like that. And it's hard for you to compare yourself when, let's say Facebook. Multiple people were trying to do Facebook.
Yes.
Even afterwards, multiple people were trying to do Facebook.
Yes.
So if Mark didn't go to Harvard and steal that idea, which he said he didn't steal, but I mean, come on, he did. If you gave him some beers,
I still haven't watched the film.
Oh, you need to.
I know.
You need to. And then if he wouldn't have met the Napster guy, it maybe not have worked out. Think about us, for example. if I would have went to the U of M instead of NDSU, I could have met no one and been working at, and it was a recession, not had a job, kind of fledgling by, or I could have met the most amazing person ever.
Lance 2.0.
Lance just way better.
Ah, that guy's cool.
Way better than New Big. And I already like him a lot. But what's crazy about that is whatever that scenario is, either one, I'm still the same person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
exactly.
You're
still the same person, same set of cards, right? Or I mean, a slightly different set of cards, but like you still have cards, right?
Yep.
You still have cards.
And then I don't think, especially some of these young decisions about what university. Oh, you should put, you know, all your effort and time and thinking about what university. And basically mine came to, the other ones are too expensive and people seem to like this one and it has good reviews. I'll go there.
Yeah.
Like that's it. And it seemed to work out. So, and the thing about that combination is that the thousands of people are trying and no one relates the stories of, oh, that didn't work out. That didn't work out. That, because I remember after Facebook, this one group, they were starting like this new Facebook. Hey, we want you to join. It's going to be better because this. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere.
What the heck is it called? Like, now you're making me think about it. Yeah, I know. There's another one. Ellie or something like that. But there's some other, I can't remember what the heck it's called.
Yeah. But that was, and then I knew friends actually from the U of M that were starting another different Facebook and LinkedIn worked. But man, there's 1,000. There's 1,000 of those guys that are in the graveyard. And those stories never get told.
Yeah.
Next, that goes to take leaps.
Okay.
And what I wanted to say about this is, yes, take leaps, but know that entrepreneurs are risk adverse. They take calculated risks.
Calculated risks.
So when Marilyn said her mom figured out the vouchers, right? Mm-hmm. So like, okay, she took a risk, but she had a backup.
Exactly.
I'm.
She understood sort of this formula. Right. Yep. And she figured out how to plug herself into it. I think that's part of the equation is you need to figure out, you know, if A plus B equals X, well, then I'm X, but I need to figure out A plus B.
Yep. So I'm barely reading this book, originals, because I'm selling my house, studying for the AREs, running for him. So every 2 weeks I'll read like 2 pages. But it made this point. And they've proven it through scientific studies. And one of the studies was they'd ask everyone, and then they'd ask, you know, who they are, and they tried to ask a bunch of entrepreneurs too, but they'd ask everyone so that they knew how they compared. And they said, here's a scenario, Lance. Would you take $10 million with a 25% chance of you getting that? Would you take $5 million with a 50% chance, or would you take $1 million with a 75% chance?
This seems like the 1 million makes sense. Right?
Okay. So that's what I'd say too. Entrepreneurs chose that less riskier scenario more than the normal public. So they were more likely to choose. And then this is one of
So the normal public took the 10 million?
No. It's let's say 80% of entrepreneurs said that.
Yes.
Maybe the general public only 70% said that.
Oh, okay. So there's a noticeable difference. That's okay.
And this is one of many, many studies. So while entrepreneurs might be crazy, you know, do all this other stuff, it's calculated. So let's say they're going to jump off a cliff for whatever reason. They're going to make sure that they know how fast they're going. They're going to make sure that there's pads there. They're going to make sure that there's pads outside the pads, you know. So, they did something crazy, but you didn't see the behind work that they're doing to make it actually work. Mm-hmm. So take risks, but take calculated risks.
Calculated risks, yeah. Absolutely critical.
Yeah, and then Forbes had an article that I'll post about that. Entrepreneurs are calculated risk takers.
Cool. Cool.
So yeah, that was my reaction.
Yeah. Well, thanks Marilyn. Obviously, thanks to Al. Yeah. Let's wrap up with some wonderful code questions that I have prepared for everybody. So let's see, I think it was Wednesday, I finished reading the 2015 International Building Code, and wow, was it an amazing book, I gotta tell you.
Top it. 5 stars? 5 stars Amazon?
Again, I didn't read every word, but I don't know. I have the chapters memorized, so we'll see. I take the test. I take my contractor's test in a couple days. Next week, Monday. So wish me luck. I hope I pass it.
Do you get instant
results?
I'm
gonna pass it. You get instant results. I'm gonna do a recap. So, God willing, I'll pass it. Yep. And then I want to do a recap on next week's episode about ARE versus the contractor's tests.
Awesome.
Because it's kind of like your analogy between the technical schools who teach practical stuff and these architecture schools that teach theory stuff. Like we got to start meeting in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, we got to start learning from each other on opposite sides of the coin.
And I just retook my PPP and I felt really good about it. But again, it's a false security, because each question, I know hey, what would you do? I can't really say the questions. But let's say so there's programming phase, schematic design, design development, and contract documents. And it goes, this information, when would it be more appropriate to get?
I already hate it.
And what's crazy about that is that if you're going to have a subjective question, then you need room for a subjective answer. Because if you said please write out in each, in programming phase, you might want it, but you'd really just be looking for this information. In schematic design, you can disregard it because you're just doing like a design concept. You know what I mean? Like I could explain, but it's weird because it's not a schematic. I mean, it's not a subjective answer.
No. That was awful. I just cringed. So glad I'm done with those.
So I can't wait to see how you'll know how the questions are worded. You learn
about the results right away is what I'm told. And I've actually asked a couple architects in the Entre Architect community. I've asked a couple contractors here in Colorado just advice on what to study for, what it's like, all that. Apparently you get a roll of drawings. And you're supposed to, a lot of it is just being able to read drawings. So that's why the contractor, one of our best contractor, told me that he's like, you're not going to have a problem with this. He's like, this is what you do for a living. Yeah. Like, really? I don't know. I'm still skeptical though. I just don't trust stuff.
That's how the ARE should be. For people that have been in the industry for 5 to 7, 10 years, like, oh, yeah, you do this every day, literally for 8 hours a day, sometimes 12.
Exactly. Okay, here we go. Ready? Here we go. We got 3 questions, and the third one is a 2-part question. Okay.
Okay.
So we're starting with Chapter 12, indoor environments. Okay. Section 1205.2, natural light. Okay. The minimum net glazed area shall not be less than what % of the floor area of the room served? Is it A, 6%, B, 8%, C, 10%, D, 12%? And I'll repeat the question. The minimum net glazed area shall not be less than what % of the floor area of the room served? A, 6%, B, 8%, C, 10%, D, 12%.
I used to know this.
I've had a planner come back and on a review and cite this, and then we had to prove. So I know I already knew the answer, but
I knew it in college because that was one of the code questions that someone, probably Martin's, brought up.
Oh,
and I remember. Oh, ma'am. So I don't remember it now. I'm going to guess 12%.
8%.
8%.
8%. Yep.
Nice.
8% is the correct answer. Okay. Now we'll move up to. We're going to go to Chapter 14, exterior walls. I think Chapter 13, by the way, is energy. And I think it's like 2 pages long or something.
You must have remembered that from the building official.
From the building official, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Got asked about it, had to prove it, and we were within 8%. We were right there. But so you can't have windowless habitable rooms. All right. So Chapter 14, exterior walls, Section 1403.2, exterior wall envelope test assemblies shall be what sizes? And exactly, you gave me that look like, what are you talking about? So have you driven by, I know you have, a big commercial project where they have a mock-up wall?
Yes.
This is what we're talking about.
Okay.
So in certain, like if we're testing maybe a new material or it's in the specifications that we want to test the full wall assembly, or the building official has asked, hey, I want you guys to do a mock-up.
Yep.
We've never had to do one, but so there's a certain size. You have to have the contractor replicate it.
So say the question again.
So the question is, exterior wall envelope test assemblies shall be at least what size?
Okay.
A, 3 feet by 6 feet. B, 4 feet by 6 feet. C, 4 feet by 8 feet. D, 6 feet by 12 feet.
So I'm going to guess because I have never read this before and I don't have any clues. But based off what I've seen in the field, so I've seen them in the field. I've seen probably 3 or 4 of them in person, and they've all been at least 6 foot by 12 foot. That doesn't mean that's the answer.
Yeah, look at you, ARE guy. You're thinking.
That just means that they've all done at least 1 story tall, and normally it's the first story, and the first story is taller.
Okay.
But I'll say 4 by 8.
Awesome. That is correct.
Cool.
And why I thought you would get that right is because it follows like fundamental rules of materials come in a lot of 4 by 8 sheets, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it makes total sense that they would do this.
Yeah. That's actually really smart because you can buy 1 sheet of plywood.
Yeah. Look at you, IBC. Looking out for us. Trying to save materials. Yeah. Okay.
So if it was an ARE question, I'm just being funny now. It'd be 4.33 by 8.66.
Oh,
I'm just kidding. It would really want it.
Oh, no. Honestly, who knows? All right. Same chapter. This is clearances. And this, everybody should probably know this one, especially because, we deal with selecting materials a lot, right?
Yep.
So it's section 1405.10.1.1. Clearances. On exterior stud walls, adhered masonry veneer shall be installed not less than how many inches above the earth? A, 2 inches. B, 3 inches. C, 4 inches. D, 6 inches. I'm going to repeat the question. On exterior stud walls, adhered masonry veneer shall be installed not less than how many inches above the earth? A, 2 inches. B, 3 inches. C, 4 inches. D, 6 inches.
I'm going to say 2 inches.
Incorrect. 4 inches.
4 inches.
4 inches. Yep. So it's got to be at least 4 inches.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I've seen a lot of brick way closer than 4 inches.
Right to the ground.
Yeah.
Right to the ground. There have been cities and HOAs that have required us to go right to the ground.
Yeah.
So...
And that's what the other reason why I said 2 is I go, man, I've seen a lot that you have to be under 6. You have to
6 or less.
Yeah, 6 or less.
Yeah. So you could fight that in a way if you really wanted to, according to the code.
Well, could you fight? I mean, the code, that just means they're breaking it, and that just means all of my field experience is doing something that's wrong.
Yeah.
Seeing something that's wrong.
Seeing something that's wrong.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Here's part 2 of the question.
4 inches,
Okay. Yep. How many? So for paved areas, the masonry veneer shall not be less than how many inches above the paved area?
Time out. I'm still thinking about this.
Okay.
Because
I've
had multiple HOAs that say the brick has to come down to 6 inches within grade.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But it can't be less than 4 inches.
Right.
So if you have something that's stepping
mm-hmm.
a slope, you're going to have to step that almost every foot or 2, depending on because you have 2 inches of wiggle room. You have 2 inches of wiggle room.
Yep.
I'm not saying anything's wrong. I'm just going practicality.
Exactly. Think about this. No, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes a difference for sure.
Huh. What? Okay. What are we going to do when an HOA or whatever says it has to be below 6 inches and there's slope? Are we going to show them, okay, every foot we're stepping. You got 14 steps.
It's just a crazy stepping insaneness. I don't know.
But is that what?
I think it's something worth bringing up, honestly. I mean, I'm surprised. I honestly was not going in any direction like this with this question, but I'm glad you are. I don't know. Because there's like I said, multiple HOAs that have said stone needs to go to the ground. I mean, to the ground.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Got to be 4.
Yeah.
It makes total sense. Yeah. Same thing for like lumber, right? You can't do top of foundation, 6 inches.
Yep.
Or above or more, right?
And know what's crazy about that too? Have you read? Because we've done 6 inches forever, but I swear one of the codes moved it up to 8, or maybe that was a preference by. Did you read anything about 8, or is it still 6?
I have a question. I have about 30 more questions lined up, and so we're just going to continue doing this until we're done with them. But what I'm getting at is there's a 7 inch There's one that doesn't make sense. Once I get to chapter 23, wood framing, there's a 7-inch number that you'll just be like, what? This makes no sense. And I'll draw the diagram. You'd be like, this makes absolutely no sense. Why did they write it that way?
But is the wood still 6 inches above grade?
Yeah, and then any wood within the 8 inches needs to be pressure treated. So that's what it is.
That's what it is.
So they account for that, the sill height.
And that's why you go above 6 inches with your concrete, because your wood base plate, which you could treat, is only 1.5 inch. So you have to treat the bottom half inch of every stud going up.
See, that's where it doesn't make sense, because you always do pressure treated plates, right?
Yeah.
So that half inch, that's what I'm talking about. It doesn't make it really, I don't know why. The 8 inch blew my mind, because I'm like, you should write it for 7.5. Why aren't you writing 7.5? But I suppose they just wanted to be practical with like an even number.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
But then, so all concrete technically should be 7 inches above grade.
Exactly, to make up for that.
Yeah.
So maybe they should adjust that number.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. Okay.
The more you learn.
The more you investigate. So here's part 2. Actually, there's 2 more little parts of this, but it's easy, right? So how far should this what is the minimum this masonry should be above paved areas? A, 4 inches. So paved area would be a sidewalk.
Okay.
Sidewalk right next to the building.
So now it needs to be above that.
Yep. What is the minimum height? It has to be above that, okay?
Okay.
A, 4 inches. B, 3 inches. C, 2 inches. D, 1 inches.
Man, if you would have said 0, I might have chose that. I'm going to say 2, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Ding, ding,
4.
ding. Correct.
Awesome.
2 inches, okay? Okay, last one. Not less than how many inches above exterior walking surfaces that are supported by the same foundation that supports the wall shall the masonry veneer be?
That's a word jumble.
It's a word jumble, so I'll just kind of explain it. I'll kind of dumb down the question, for lack of better words. So let's say you have a porch that is, you poured a foundation underneath the porch. And so it's not just a slab on grade.
And the foundation of the porch is connected to the foundation of the house.
Correct. Yep. So that's the situation, okay? So how close can you get the masonry veneer in this situation? This is different, all right? A, 1/4 inch.
This is different.
B, 1/2 inch. C, 3/4 of an inch. D, 1 inch.
What's your grout? Grout is typically going to be 3/4 inch, but that doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to think logically. 3/4.
Close. 1/2 inch.
1/2 inch.
Yep, you can be a 1/2 inch.
Okay.
There you go.
Here's a question.
Okay.
You know how we have, well, especially for other developers, I don't know how much we have for us, a standard pages of details. Should this be in our general notes?
It is.
Did you look, and are our numbers right?
Yeah. Awesome. The only one I didn't have in is I didn't have in the paved areas, and I didn't have in the above the walking surfaces that are attached to a foundation. So I will update that.
Yeah,
for sure. But I did have the 4 inch and what we talked about earlier with the 6 inch in the foundation. One of these days, you should read through our general notes. It is a pretty good set of general notes.
I have. It was years ago. But whenever we have enough time, I almost think we should draw this one and just have the different dimensions and then call it out and then say this scenario, this scenario, this scenario, this scenario.
I think it's a great idea.
Because then even if, let's say we're drawing in an elevation, our guys haven't read the general notes, and this section will visibly.
And I think it's important for the paved areas because things are going to heave. The soil is so expansive in Colorado. 50% of our buildings here we have to get put on caissons. We can't just do spread footers. So that sidewalk could move, and then think about it. It could buckle. It could buckle all of that masonry veneer in the bottom, and then then they got to repair it, and then we're in trouble and all this other nonsense.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to shoot one idea out to the public.
Okay.
So sometime, we still got a lot to talk about. These questions are cool. One idea that I brought up to Lance is that we might read a business book, but it's kind of tailored to architecture too. Maybe not too much, but a business book, a chapter each day. Each week. Each week.
Coming from the guy who reads 2 pages every 3 weeks.
Exactly. And then talk about it and see if it applies to our business. And the one I'm thinking about is
Yeah.
E-Myth.
Yes,
the E-Myth.
The E-Myth.
Yep. It's by Michael someone.
Mm-hmm.
I have to look it up. If anyone has any other suggestions about what you might want us to explore, I mean, it would just be one of our segments. Maybe it'd replace the best and worst advice, or maybe it'd just be instead of, who knows? But you got it?
Yeah, it's called The E-Myth, and it's by Michael Gerber.
Michael Gerber. There you go. That's our idea. Let us know if you have any other thoughts. Other than that, do you have anything else?
I got nothing else. Have a great week. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot.